Colonel, before we get to the black family, I want to talk a little bit about the Community Reinvestment Act that you spent some time on. You said this, quote, "The Carter administration's centerpiece legislation was its biggest mistake. The Community Reinvestment Act of 1977 addressed how banking institutions meet the credit needs of the areas they serve, but the law set up a system where the feds issued credits or points to banks that engage in certain activities to promote growth in poor communities," end of quote. What went wrong, Colonel?
Well, what went wrong is the seminal discussion we should be having in the United States of America is the difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcomes. The Carter administration made the decision that everyone had a right to own a home, and therefore they created a law, and of course that really forced banks, financial institutions to do something that they should not do, because our inalienable rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's equality of opportunity. And so 30 some odd years later, we had the mortgage meltdown, that incredible crisis, subprime mortgages. We had, the failures and the rise of government-supported enterprises that got involved in the mortgage industry because we basically turned it over to the public sector, all because the Carter administration said that everyone has a right to own a home. And that had an incredibly bad effect in the black community because standards were lowered. Mm-hmm. And you've talked about this. When you lower standards instead of helping people to achieve a standard, then that's the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, I've called it, Colonel, the first affirmative action recession we've ever had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But no one has talked about it. Instead, we didn't focus on what created the problem in the mortgage meltdown of 2008.
Right.
We didn't trace it all the way back to 1977. That's why people say those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
The decimation of the traditional black family. Talk to us about that.
Well, what's amazing, Larry, is that when you type up and you go look at the mission statement or the objectives and goals of Black Lives Matter, they say that the traditional nuclear family is a representation of white supremacy and, failed white civilization. Well, when I was born in 1961 in a segregated hospital, a blacks-only hospital in Atlanta, the two-parent household in the black community was almost 77%. Post the Great Society programs of Lyndon Baines Johnson, when they came in and said a woman has a child out of wedlock, the government will give her a check. The caveat is she cannot have a working man in the home. You talked about that in the documentary. The government came in and replaced the man in the home, decimated the black family, and now, 55 years later, look what is happening in the urban population centers all across America.
The book is called We Can Overcome, an American Black Conservative Manifesto. It is written by my guest, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Black Lives Matter, you write. Which ones?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You brought this up. In 2019, how many unarmed black men were shot by white police? 9. Mm-hmm. But think about how many unborn black babies have been murdered since 1973, 20 million. I have not seen Black Lives Matter protest against an organization that was founded by a white supremacist or racist who spoke at Ku Klux Klan rallies, Margaret Sanger. I've never seen them talk about supporting education freedom and education opportunities, such as school vouchers. I have never seen them go out. 5 black children were murdered over this weekend. Being in Chicago, being in my hometown of Atlanta, we saw a father walking his daughter, and he was shot dead right in front of his little 6-year-old daughter. I have not heard Black Lives Matter talk about that. So they only care about the lives that align with their ideological agenda, which allows them to do exactly what they do. They're Marxists. They're just, protesters. They're following in the same lines as the NAACP. They're supported by liberal progressives.
My guest is Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. The book is called We Can Overcome, an American Black Conservative Manifesto. Colonel, we come back. I want to ask you about a piece that was in the New York Times. Quote, the so-called Southern strategy, appealing to white voters by focusing on racial issues, had worked very well for the Republican Party. It helped the party persuade frustrated white working-class voters that the Democratic Party doesn't care about them. Nixon invented it. I want to ask Colonel West, is that summary of the so-called Southern strategy accurately